Hey, hey, welcome to Project Freelance. If you are new to hearing my voice, what is up? My name is Canon, and this is a weekly podcast that comes out every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, just in time for your Monday morning commute. So, every week I have a different guest on to share their freelancing career stories, to see where they've come from, where they're going, their goals, their dreams, their aspirations. And I just want to pick my friends' brains. That's pretty much it. This podcast is a way for me to catch up with people that I enjoy, following their content or that I've been friends with, and we are too busy to, talk on the phone for 45 minutes. So it's super rad that I am getting to talk to Matt Bender, aka the Bender Matt, today on Project Freelance. We're going to be talking about live music photography. I know I talk about that a lot on this podcast, but that is my favorite thing to do, live music photography. So, of course, I'm going to have a bunch of live music photographers on the podcast to share their stories and their insights with not only you, but also with me, because, I need some education as well. So, before we get started, I have to let you know that I have a book. I made a book. It's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. So it's a photography book called No Tracers, an Urban Explorer's Diary, and it is full of high-res photography from abandoned places all over the United States, a place in Canada, a place in Portugal, some international stuff, but mostly the United States. And in this book, I not only have photos, but I also have stories of all my urban exploration tales. So if you guys are interested in something like that, it makes a great gift. It makes a great coffee table book. Somebody is going to want to read this. It's pretty cool, and I had a blast making it over the last year, and I would love to sign it and send it out to you wherever you live, whether you're in America or if you live internationally. I also ship to you. So if you want a book, go to justtheletterk.com/no tracers. The links will be down in the description, as well as links to all the Project Freelance socials. So without further ado, let's jump into this podcast. Matt, can you please introduce yourself and what it is you do to the Project Freelance audience?
My name is Matt Bender, and I'm a full-time touring content creator. I mostly do photo and video work for bands.
Amazing. So let's talk about how you got into photography and video in the first place. Which one came first for you? Was it photo or video?
It was photo for sure. I think that's kind of the trend with most people in this line of work. I started by taking nature photos, kind of going for the Instagram shots with one of my really good friends from high school. And I just got crazy into that. If you scroll back on my feed forever, you'll see a bunch of photos of Arkansas and stuff like that where my friends lived, and I'd go up there and shoot in the mountains with them, and that was always a lot of fun. And then when I'd come home to Austin, where I live, I just, there wasn't as much of a variety to take those kind of nature photos. So I started looking for something new. And then a friend's band was playing at a venue here. I reached out to him, asked if I could shoot. I shot it. This was at the beginning of 2016, I think. And ever since then, I've just been hooked on shooting music.
So what was the venue that you shot at that first time?
It was called Stubbs, and it was actually cool. I was on a little mini tour last week, and we actually got to roll back through Stubbs. So it was fun coming back to that venue. Every time I come back and I shoot there, either on tour or just for a band whenever I'm home, it's always a nice kind of reminder, and it's always cool to compare the photos I get from that show back to the first one.
Yeah, and about comparing your photos, I mean, we all started somewhere. So can you talk about your progression over the years as a photographer?
Yeah. I guess when I started, I didn't really have too many goals, and I didn't, I've always been interested in the concept of touring, and I tried playing guitar in bands and bass, and it never really got anywhere, and frankly, I wasn't very good. And so with photography, it was the first time I was doing something within the music scene that I was like, wow, this is cool. I'm good at it. And obviously, looking back now, I was pretty trash when I started, but it was really cool, seeing the photos and giving them to the bands and hearing them freak out that they were cool. And I really looked up to a bunch of different photographers, like everybody else in this scene, I'm sure, like Adam Elmakias. I probably butchered his name. And then there's a million other people out there, but I would always see their photos and just be obsessed with them. And I'd watch hours of YouTube videos. I'd sit at my computer and edit in Lightroom forever. And I was always just trying to push myself to get to that next level and trying to, obtain, the editing style that I thought was sick. And I've really just like throughout the years I've just tried just working as hard as I can to, get an editing style that I'm proud of. And I think that's what I focus on a lot in my photography is just like the way that I edit. And obviously there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it as well, but I feel like that's one of the things that's helped me get work in the last couple of years. Um, and so I would, focus on that quite a bit. And then obviously like networking and everything else that goes into photography and goes into making somewhat of a career in it, because it's not just, taking the photo, it's building relationships with people and understanding the gear. And yeah, so I guess to kind of cut the answer a little shorter, it's just been like one thing after another, and just watching videos and trying to learn and doing that. And I don't know when I'll get to a spot that I'll actually finally be happy with how my stuff looks, but hopefully that'll be sometime soon.
Yeah, I think we all have that that when is my work going to be good enough? I've done an entire episode about that, like, self-critiquing your own work to the point where it's like unhealthy. But to go back to what you were saying about like influence and stuff. So we've actually had Adam Elmakias on the podcast before, to, share his story. And like you, I also looked up to him and still look up to him to this day as a live music photographer. He is like a household name when it comes to photography. And it's been so cool to follow his journey. And so it's cool also to hear that you've gotten inspiration from him. So let's switch gears and talk about video. When did video come into play for you?
It was at the beginning of 2018, I think. I was on tour with a band called Rivals and a band called the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. And Rivals, the main band I was working for on that tour, they told me that, they wanted videos done. And at that point, I really hadn't done video, and I'd honestly been super resistant to learning video. Like thinking back, I don't know why, because obviously it would have been like something good to go ahead and learn earlier, rather than when I was on my first tour. But they wanted it, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll try it. And as soon as I started doing it, I just kind of fell in love with it. It's similar to taking photos, but it's such a different animal, and it's something that I really enjoy doing because I don't know. I feel like there's more of a sense of pride with a video when I finish it than with photos. Like with video, I can just make something out of nothing, just out of like, just clips of something and turn it into something really rad. And obviously I can do that with photos, and anyone can do that with photos too, but just something with video, just, I feel way more proud. It's like my little video babies whenever I finish them. And so I grinded that out a lot. I spent, after that Red Jumpsuit tour, that was probably about 6 months total. It was off and on for 6 months. We had like 2-3 week breaks in the middle of that, but aside from that, it was a pretty long tour last year. And so by the end of that, I kind of got to a place where I was, I guess, semi decent. I was still learning every day, and making a video every single day. At that point, I was doing daily recaps. Kind of helped me, I guess, get a little bit used to it pretty quickly. And then just throughout, the last year or two, video has really been the thing that's opened most of the doors that have been opened for me. In this day and age, to tour with most bands, you have to know video and photo. There's some people who are just phenomenal at video or photo, and they're able to do just that one thing. But I'd say for most of us out there, it's just a skill you have to know to be able to get work. And so it's just been soaking up other videographers out on the road. Like, I mean, a short list is like Chris Blocked is an amazing videographer. I mean, I met Chris at a show years ago, and he was super nice to me, and we kind of hit it off, and we talked a little bit. And just watching his career take off by video and his photos, it was crazy. And that was definitely just something that kind of told me like, hey, you need to learn how to do this. And there's a million people out there who do it super well. And so that was just, that was kind of the eye opener that I need to get on this train and learn it. And since then, it's been really good, and I've just had a lot of fun learning video. And I've moved into doing music videos, and doing some more like corporate video stuff. And I never would have done that unless I had just like taken the leap and started doing it.
Yeah, 100%. It's great to hear that you're expanding beyond live music to do other things like corporate work as well, just to, make that extra money on the side. So let's talk about touring. So tell me about your first time going on tour and how you secured that gig and how that was for you.
Yeah. So my first tour was actually that Rivals and Red Jumpsuit Apparatus tour. So, thinking back, so the vocalist Kaylee, she's one of my like best friends now. That band is amazing. If y'all haven't heard of Rivals, go check them out. They're killing it. But I was friends with her just through the scene. Her boyfriend Cody plays drums in a band called the Browning. The Browning was on tour, and I knew Kaylee was out with them. And so I DM'd her on Facebook asking if I could get a photo pass and come shoot the show. Like most people have started friendships in this scene. And she said, yeah, I came out. She really liked my photos, and she and I kept in touch. And then she messaged me when her band Rivals was coming through Austin. And so I ended up shooting them like twice on 2 different tours, and just kind of became friends with them. And then they asked me if I would go out with Red Jumpsuit with them. And so, of course, I said yes, because, it's Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. I grew up listening to them.
Yeah.
And obviously, I wanted to get a taste of what tour is like, because at that point, I had been shooting for a little bit over a year, I guess. And, the thought of tour was becoming more and more appealing. And it sounded like, a lot of fun. And I wanted to see what it was all about. And so I got to do that. And, like I said, that was a long tour. At first, it was like 3 weeks. And then they were invited to go out on the rest of the legs of the tour. So, about another 2.5 months of touring with a couple 3-week breaks in between. Yeah. So it was wild. And I spent, pretty much that first half of the year in a van with them. And it was one of my favorite experiences. It was a grind, don't get me wrong, but I think that was one of the most rewarding things. And I got so much content that I was proud of. And the videos were just starting, but there's a couple videos that I made that I still will kind of go back and watch and be like, wow, that was good. And the style of video that I make kind of has changed a bit since then, but it was such a great jumping off spot. And I had met so many friends on that tour, and I made so many relationships that are going to last forever. And I don't know, it was such a good experience. And I'm so glad that, they asked me to go out on it, and that, I took a leap and, took a leave of absence at my job and just went for it. And it ended out working out for me.
So did you mention that you had ended up working for 2 bands on that tour, for both bands?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I worked for Rivals for the first half, and then I started doing some work for Red Jumpsuit because they saw my content and they liked it. And, as tour goes, I always try to become friends with everybody on the package. You're going to see them every day. So, why not? Plus, how often do you get to become friends with Red Jumpsuit Apparatus? And so I just kind of got close to them, and then I approached them about content, and then they said, well, maybe. And then a couple weeks later, they came back to me and they asked me to do some stuff for them. And so that was really cool. And since then I've kind of maintained a relationship with them, and I've done a couple one-off festivals and shows with them. And it's always rad. Like, just yesterday, they put out a lyric video on AP, and then AP used my photo on it. So it's always rad kind of seeing that stuff and just being like, man, I grew up listening to this band with my sister when she was driving me to school in her car. And, now their Spotify photo and, their press photos are something I did. So it's just a cool full circle moment.
No, that's super rad. I went to Ronnie, their singer's wedding, actually, and that was like so surreal to be at a Red Jumpsuit type of wedding. It's like
that's so sick.
It's crazy. I'm best friends with their old touring photographer who got out of touring, and now he's doing other things. But it's crazy to see that band is still able to like put out music and still pull that audience that they do. It's absolutely phenomenal. And like it's just so cool to see that they have rivaled and they've gone past all expectations, especially for like a long-term project like
Right.
that. And after all the member changes they've had, it's amazing to see that they're still doing it.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
they're going
what
to Australia with Boys Like Girls in a few months.
exactly
I'm trying to get on that.
trying to get on that, son. Yeah, international stuff. Like it's, I don't know if you've done much of it. Have you?
I've done Mexico. I've done a couple different tours that have gone international. I did Shiprocked with
Oh,
that
okay.
band Rivals, actually.
Yeah.
And that was just a cruise to Mexico, which was a lot of fun. And then um, I did a South America tour with Escape the Fate, which was Mexico and Brazil. It was supposed to be Chile and another country as well, but that fell through due to that's wild. That's a whole nother story I'll get into in a sec. And then after the Escape tour, from Mexico to Brazil is what it ended up being. I came home for 4 days, and then I flew back to Brazil with Scott Stapp, and then I was with him for a month in Brazil, and that was basically the whole month of November.
That's amazing. So, yeah, let's talk about what happened in South America a little bit if you want to get into it. I would love to hear more about it. You know, I heard everything from TJ's perspective on Facebook and stuff. So, tell me a little bit about that adventure and some of the things that people may not know about touring internationally in a country where there's a lot of political unrest.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really know what to expect going over there because the last time I haven't been to Mexico before earlier this year when we went there, but that was to like a different part, on the coast. I hadn't been to like Mexico City or any of the other cities that we went to in like 10 years. So in the climate there has changed drastically since then. So I was definitely nervous, but I was excited. We go over there, and the Mexico shows were great. And as we were in Mexico City, I think we had 2 days off planned that we were going to hang out there. The guys in Escape started getting messages from fans saying like, "Hey, we want you to come to Colombia, but or I'm sorry, Chile. We want you to come, but now's not a good time. There's like rioting that's just starting, and we want you to be safe." So we all kind of talked about it, and our team was keeping an eye on the situation, and we kind of stayed in limbo for a day or two while they were figuring out what we were going to do. And then at like the night before we were supposed to go, they just decided that, hey, we're going to head, and unfortunately we're going to cancel that show and hopefully postpone it till later. And the wild thing is the night that we were supposed to be there in Chile, from the rioting, the hotel that we were supposed to stay in was set on fire from the rioters, and like 15 people died. And it's super sad. And it was one of the most like sobering moments that I was like, oh my God. Like if we had gone, that's the hotel we would have been in at the very least. We would have lost a lot of our stuff. And that's like the most shallow way of looking at it. The reality is if we had went, one of us probably would have passed away. And it's just scary to think about. It's a reminder just to like tell your friends and family that you love them. And at that point in the tour, I definitely kind of got in my own head a little bit. And it took a couple days to kind of like, I guess, shake out and get back to normal. And then the show in Colombia unfortunately got canceled. Something happened with the venue, and so we weren't able to do it. And so we ended up going from Mexico to just flying straight to Brazil. And then we were in Brazil for, I think about a week and a half, something like that. And that was a lot of fun, and just kind of getting to experience Brazil was crazy because I never thought I would ever go to Brazil. And it's crazy that, this job and career path has been able to open up those doors to be able to travel and see these like crazy sights, like that Christ the Redeemer statue. I was able to go twice in 2 weeks on 2 different trips. And when we went back and we were going to the statue, I was like telling the guys where to go. It's like, oh, let's go this way. And they're looking at me like I have 5 eyes or something like that. But it was a lot of fun. I definitely want to go back over there and do some more international stuff.
Yeah, so for people that are listening that maybe photographers and videographers that are trying to get into touring and say they've just gotten an offer to go internationally, sometimes the band will offer to, pay for your flight because you get the opportunity to go over there. So I just want to talk a little bit about that because typically when you do a freelance gig and you go somewhere that's traveling, they pay for your flight. So sometimes bands make you pay for your flight. What could you say to listeners out there that are trying to navigate this confusing
Yeah.
situation? Like, how should they go about, convincing the band that no, you need to pay for the flights?
Yeah, that's hard. Fortunately, the bands that I've worked with have been super respectful and understanding that I'm there to work, and so they've compensated me for it. Um, but I've heard every day, there's always artists and bands that are like, I'm giving you this opportunity to come with me, and this is great for you, so you can pay your way over there, and that just wouldn't work for me, honestly, and because this is my job. If I have to go and pay to work, then that doesn't make too much sense. Like, yeah, it's fun. If I had all the money in the world, would I do it? Maybe. But it's just about doing what works for you. So, like, if you're in that position and you really want to go and do it and you think it's going to be a good career builder to go and do it, why not? I'm not one to tell you how to live your life, but if it's one of those situations where, this is how you make money to support yourself and, your family, if you have one, then, the band you work with needs to see your worth and value you. And if they don't, that's probably not a good relationship. Now, there's always exceptions to that rule, and I know bands aren't always rolling in money, so there may be a good relationship, and they may value you, and they may just not have the money to take you on that trip, but they're still willing to put you on if you can get over there. Um, I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to what works for you, but it's important for the band that you work for to value you and to understand that you're there just like their merch guy, just like their LD, just like their TM. You're there to work. You're there to do a job. You're there to accomplish something. And no one would ask a TM to go and TM overseas for free. So I don't really feel like that should apply to the content creators of this side,
Absolutely. And I mean, without the content creators, nobody's going to see the shows from the night before, So it's like,
Yeah.
it's an important role to play, especially now in this day of social media.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that I feel like more and more management and more bands get now. It's like, even compared to a year ago, like, some of the people I work with that have been playing since before social media was even a thing. And that was never a thought in their mind when they were hiring their first crews, and now they're buying in and they're understanding the importance of things like Instagram and Twitter and making posts and making stories and recap videos. And it's cool to see like the machine and everything turning in their heads that, like, hey, we get it. Hey, we understand why this is important. Hey, we're here to support you. We're here to compensate you. We're here to make sure you can get the best content you can get so we can look the best that we can look. It's a marketing tool. At its very core, it's there to make people excited. It's there to make the artist more relatable to the fans. And that's something that I feel like more and more people are getting now, which is really nice to see. We don't have to fight as much to like declare our value as we once did.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's getting a lot easier for, content creators to do things like tour because, like you said, bands are starting to understand that, hey, 90% of the content consumed in 2020 is going to be video content. So if you're not making video content right now, you're already 5 steps behind and you need to start doing it immediately. So what does a typical day look like for you when you're on tour, when you're on the road?
Yeah, it kind of depends from the night before, but typically in like the best case scenario, I try and wake up by like 9:30 or 10 at the latest. I try to get a little bit of sleep, but it's just kind of one of those things where you have to be resigned to. You're not going to get a full 8 hours of sleep every night on the road, especially with being a content creator, which I mean I'll get into in a sec. But I usually try and wake up like around 10. Also, depending on when load-in is, different bands and different tours will load in at different times. I've had bands that I've worked for where we'll be at the venue at 9 a.m., and I've had bands where we don't roll up to the venue till 3 p.m. So it kind of depends on that, but I'll wake up, and then if I have any editing to finish from the night before, I'll get that done, and then I'll start shooting. Pretty much I'll pull my camera out as soon as I wake up, and I'm not always shooting and always filming, but I always have it right by me, so if anything starts happening, I can start going. And if it's video or photo, it's usually video if I'm just like chilling. If I just woke up and I'm sipping on coffee, I'll just have my camera set up on a video setting. So if someone start twerking in the front lounge, drinking their morning coffee, I can get it. But I'll go from that, and then assuming we have loaded or something like that, I'll get some B-roll of crew loading into the venue and just, the venue itself, whatever that is. And, then I'll just shoot throughout the day, shoot a little bit of sound check. I usually don't hang around the whole thing, but, just get a clip or something of it just in case something cool happens. Then we'll get VIP taken care of. Sometimes I run VIP for the bands. Sometimes I just, document it. And then, I'll go get food, kind of chill for a little bit, and then start getting ready for the show. So really what that means is rush getting ready for the show and then kind of film and take photos of the guys getting ready for the show. Hang out in the green room with them, just kind of film the back and forth, take some photos. And then it's showtime. And for that, I usually start by just, filming. I will set up like my video gear, and I'll usually do the first half, like filming of the set, and then I'll go take photos. And then once I'm done shooting at the show, one of the artists I work for, he has a post-show meet and greet, so I'll go and do that. Everybody else usually does it before. And so they'll have all that done. And then after the show is done, as soon as it's done, and if there's nothing else that I really need to be around to film, like the meet and greet or like anything else, then I'll run out to the bus and I'll just start editing. And I always get the photos done right after the show. So I have that done. That way I can just like sleep easier and relax easier. I don't like sitting down and kicking my feet up after a show until I get the photos done. Because it's just, I can, and so why not? And that way I can relax and I don't have to have all these photos hanging over my head that I have to get done. And then I'll get those done, and usually it's around 12 or 1 by that point, depending on when the show was, and I'll kind of hang out with everyone and then head to bed when I can. And, it just kind of depends, and then I'll make usually 1 video recap, 2 video recaps a week. So also balancing time to edit for those is important. I try to do a little bit on it every day. If it's not culling the footage, it's kind of getting it on the timeline and playing around with it and seeing where I'm thinking I'm going to put certain clips. And honestly, I love doing that, but it's kind of annoying because I can't really put too much work into the actual video itself until the last show I want to film gets done. Because with my luck, I'd build a 6 sequence of something, and then I'd film the show that night, and I'd be like, man, this is a perfect shot to have at the beginning. Then I'd have to re-edit it. So I just try to get all my footage organized, and then I go from there.
Definitely. So talk a little bit about upgrading from a van to a bus and what that's like for your workflow, for your because you have more space, you have more room, all that kind of stuff.
It's amazing, honestly. I mean, everybody who's gone through that change knows, and everybody I guess can see what it is. But it's nice. It's just way more peace of mind. Editing in a van sucks. There's no nice way of saying it. It's awful. Especially with my computer, when we hit bumpy roads, especially in the Northeast, my hard drives just always pop out of my computer from the USB port. So I always have to gaff tape them in so it doesn't happen. And just editing in a van just sucks. There's no nice way of saying it. Editing in a bus is a lot nicer. It's still kind of a pain, to be honest, because it's still bumpy and it's still moving, but it's way easier. You have a desk, you have a chair to sit in. And so and that helps me bang through photos way easier. Editing nightly photos in a van was terrible because it's just, you work way less fast, it's bumpy, so it's hard to, use your trackpad. But yeah, the workflow in a bus is way nicer. The peace of mind in a bus is way nicer for all the content creators I know, because we have an actual quote unquote safe spot to put our stuff. With a van, I'm always paranoid and always have my backpack on me, and I'm wheeling around my Pelican to keep all my gear on me because it's a van, and how many vans get broken into every day and their stuff stolen. So I'm not trying to have my livelihood stolen from me is really what that would turn out to be if it happened. So just being able to lock it in there, and usually on a bus tour, it also means you're at a venue where there's going to be some sort of security. And so having that extra layer, it just feels nicer and it alleviates a lot of stress that normally is there. But yeah, I'm way more productive when I have a desk I can work on. So not having to sit in the back seat of the van and have it on my lap is key.
Yeah, and for those of you out there listening, yeah, vans get broken into so much. Even if you're in a nice area. I just got done with a tour working for Red Handed Denial from Toronto and this band Acme from Japan. And literally the second day of the tour, Acme's van got broken into. They stole an amp head. They stole all of their merch. They stole like
Ugh,
a bunch of their some like in-ear monitors. Man, like,
that sucks.
and we were in a nice area of Seattle, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, you never know when it's going to happen. So, like, when in doubt, literally bring everything from the van into your hotel room, like, all
Hmm.
the time, no matter what. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely being on a bus, you have that extra security. You can lock the bus. It's harder to break into a giant bus, you know. So
Yeah.
I totally understand the, losing the potential of losing your entire livelihood. Like, that's a huge risk that we take while on tour.
Yeah.
So have you ever been screwed over on any jobs?
Uh, I'm trying to think about it. Like, I've had little, like, obviously everybody who does this has hiccups, with people who don't want to pay and stuff like that. And it's difficult because I think it's just something that like freelancers are bound to experience. It's like getting sick. It's like it's not an if, it's a when. And so yeah, it's happened this year. I had a pretty frustrating one happen with a lot of money on the line that I just, after everything we've gone through, I'm just still haven't been paid. Um, and it's hard. And, your first instinct is to be mean and aggressive and yell and stuff like that. But, there's a process that you can follow to get paid in those situations. Fortunately there's, people in place who are willing to advocate for creatives and for freelancers. There's unions, there's government agencies that make sure that people are getting paid that freelance. So there's that. And yeah, I mean, it sucks when it happens, but it's unfortunately like a reality that we have to deal with. So I just try and be prepared as possible that like when it happens. And then that kind of brings me into what I was going to say is like contracts are super important, because if you just have like a Facebook message saying this is my price and then a date you meet up to shoot, that's not as like foolproof as like a contract or a term sheet saying I agree to pay Matt Bender X amount of dollars for this content, and then people are way less likely to like, dip on you when you have something like that. And it just, it makes it more serious to them too. Um, yeah, it sucks when it happens, but it just unfortunately it's something that does happen, and I just I try not to work with those individuals again, and just learn from it so I can do better next time and not run into the same situation.
And when did you start using contracts for your work? Was it from the beginning, or was it something
Not
that you
as
developed
early as
over
I
time?
should have.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
It's recent. It's within the last year that I've started doing them. I don't. I wish I had done it from the beginning. I wish I had done it on a few key jobs this year that were the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of doing it for pretty much everything that has a budget. And since then it's been good. I haven't been screwed over. I think it's mostly because people are like, oh, he's serious. And I've definitely had bands and individuals like dip out from talking to me about doing content after I bring up the contract or term sheet. And if I have someone who wants to work with me, quote unquote, super bad until I say let's sign this contract, and then they dip out, like honestly, I'm okay not working with them anyways. So, like, yeah, if you're gonna have like that kind of visceral reaction to confirming that you're gonna pay me for my work, then like, all right, I'll be okay without this job.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to put yourself through the risk of them, bailing on you or
No,
whatever, trying to take advantage of the situation. It's great that you, have started implementing contracts into your work. I think that's a, very important thing to start bringing into your career, just to protect yourself, and it's just covering your ass at the end of the day. That's all
yeah,
contracts are, really.
yeah, it's like I used to work in tech before I quit to freelance, and I had this manager who always said that everybody always deserves to know where they stand. And I've brought that in with me on this, and I try to apply it to everyone. Like, no one likes surprises, no one likes being blindsided. So having a contract is great for even if for like the only reason that it's getting everybody on the same page. Like, hey, here's what I'm expecting from you. Here's what you're expecting from me. Here's everything involving money. This is all the money I'm going to ask you for. If you ask me for these things, this is the money I'm going to ask you for. And it just helps because no one's surprised. Everybody, if they come back and ask for a third revision on a video or something, they're not surprised when I say, okay, let's go ahead. I'll do it. It's this going to be this much extra money, and no one likes feeling like they're trying to be taken advantage of. And so getting a contract done early, I feel like eliminates the chances of that a lot.
100%. Let's talk about being an asset and making yourself an asset. On tour, like you said earlier, you sometimes work VIP. Sometimes we have to wear multiple hats, and we're doing other things we didn't really sign up to do. But can you talk about making yourself an asset on tour?
Yeah, tour's hard. Tour can really suck. Everybody has their own lives going on. Everybody has their own issues, but at the end of the day, everybody's there to play the show, make the show look good, and then do the next one, so everybody who's there or watching it can enjoy it. Like at a basic level, that's what we're all there for. No one likes someone who's in a crappy mood all the time, or someone who's not willing to help out with random things. And that was something I kind of learned from the get-go on my first tour. I had some personal stuff going on, and my friend Kaylee, who's a vocalist for that band, was, kind of took me under her wing and showed me a lot of stuff about how tour works and, why it's important to be a good hang and stuff like that. And so that's something I've really tried to take with me throughout. And one of those things was just being helpful. Like, if you can help someone do something, do it. Like, even if it's not your job, if you're able to help them, why not? And so, like you said, we usually have to wear different hats. With most of the tours that I've done, it's not just been video or photo. I had one tour where I worked merch as well as doing video and photo. I quickly learned merch is not for me. I am not good at it. I will lose your band money if you make me do merch. And after that, it's been like VIP and social media. So with with the band Escape the Fate that I work for, I do their social media, like posting on tour in addition to the content creation. And then one of the artists I work for, Scott Stapp, for him, I actually just do photo and video because they have a social media person on staff. And then our TM assistant does the VIP sessions. I just document those. I worked for a band earlier this year on a couple of tours called All That Remains, and for them, I ran their VIP session. So it's just about, doing what you can to make yourself valuable because, to make it work and to be able to come on tour as a photographer, you usually will have to do more than just photography or videography. So whether it's VIP, merch, whatever else, PAing, you're going to probably have to hustle a little bit more.
Yep, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's super important that people realize that you might be doing multiple things. You got to help the band out. At the end of the day, it's all about making the band have a good show.
Yeah.
And letting the fans have a good time.
And just to piggyback off that, like I know people who will just do their thing, and that's cool. But like, if I can just do anything to make the band's life easier, why not? Like, they're friends. Like, I want to help out my friends. So if that means running and doing an errand for them or whatever it is, not being their full-time personal assistant, but if you need a water bottle, sure, I'll go grab you one. There's no harm in that. Just doing what you can to build that relationship between you and to make you an asset, because yeah, you're friends with them, but you're also their employee. And so just doing what you can to help them get along with their day and to make their life easier is just going to do so much for you in the long run. And, it's been something that's helped us bond, just being around. And if there's something I can do to be helpful, I'll do it.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, just be a good person.
Be a good hang. I always say, bands would rather have someone who's a great hang and pretty good at their job than someone who's amazing at their job and an awful person to be around.
Yep, definitely. So what gear do you shoot on now? What are you working with?
I shoot on a Sony A7 III. I have a bunch of different glass, but mostly art glass from Sigma, and some of the Canon, some of the Sony G Master lenses. I shoot with a Ronin S, the gimbal, and that's pretty much my setup. I just bought that new 70 to 200 2.8 from G Master.
Ooh.
Amazing. It's so crispy. I was working a couple music festivals, and I just, the longest lens I had was an 85, which is sick, but I needed something, for festival stages. And so I kind of bit the bullet and bought that. And it's probably the most expensive camera purchase I've made to date. But that lens is so sick, and I've gotten so much use out of it. I'm so glad that I did it. Um, and I want to start like shooting on some cinema cameras and some cinema rigs. Like, not that I think I'm at that point where like my work deserves it, but I just want to get kind of like, I want to use them and understand how they work so that when the time comes that I have a gig where I need to use one, it's not going to be my first time using it. Um, but yeah, no, just A7 III, and then I shoot on some disposable film cameras as well, just kind of for fun on tour. Everybody likes getting some film photos, and it's definitely a cool vibe. So those are always nice. And then I want to get another camera, just like something small, because to be honest, it's kind of a pain carrying around an A7 III and a big piece of glass. Like if we're just like rolling through the city to go shop or something like that, like I still want to have a camera to take photos or some video clips if something cool pops up. But like bringing my A7 III around with, 24 to 70 or whatever on it, even like, a pancake lens it's still kind of a big profile. So I'm kind of on the lookout for something smaller to roll around with. But yeah, I switched from Canon to Sony in December last year. So I've just been with Sony now for over a year, and it's been awesome. It's killer for video, and that's really why I made the switch.
Yep, definitely. I did a similar thing a couple years ago. I switched from Canon to Sony for the same reason. The video quality and the video aspect of what Sony is bringing to the table is amazing, and it's unmatched. I mean, Canon just came out with their mirrorless, and so that's kind of the rival right now. But I think Sony is still a little bit ahead when it comes to video, video stuff.
Totally agree. I love Canon, and I wish they had a camera that was the mirror of an A7 III. But for the way I shoot video, like I shoot in 120 FPS a lot,
Yep.
slow mo, and I think the Canon R, it just doesn't have 120 at 1080p. I don't even think they have 120 at 720p. So it's just, it doesn't work for me. It's a great camera. If it works for you, amazing. If I shot mostly interview stuff, I'd probably have that. But if I'm on tour and shooting the content that I currently do, like I need something that shoots slow-mo better. And so that's kind of why I decided on the A7 III.
Definitely. And I'm hoping to upgrade to the A7 III. I'm on the A7 II right now, but the 3's got a little bit more kick, so
It's a battery life was just the game changer.
Yeah. For sure.
About it. And I had an A6500 when I had my Canon still, when I was kind of getting to know Sony, and the battery life on that was just such a turn off. And the battery life on the A7 III, it just feels like my old 5D, so that's nice.
Have you ever dealt with any like mental health stuff on tour? It can be a very lonely place when you're on tour, and so I'm just curious. I ask all my guests if they've ever, dealt with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I definitely have. Both on tour and after tour, you can get a little bit kind of in your own head. A lot of people talk about post-tour depression, which is definitely something I deal with because it's hard to go from creating every day to not creating. Creating every day with cool content right in front of you to having to go and search out that content to create from. It's hard. Being on tour can be lonely. Don't get me wrong. Tour is so much fun. It's an awesome experience. I make friends for life on it, and I learn so much, and I get to go to cool places and see cool things. But there's still another side to that, and it's being away from your family, being away from my girlfriend, being away from my home, and it gets lonely. And we live in a culture of social media where you're constantly comparing to other people, and I'm comparing my work to other people who are better than me or have been around longer and have more opportunities. And I'm in my head like, why am I not that good and stuff like that. And I just have to realize, like, everybody grows at their own pace. Everybody does their own thing. What one person is getting doesn't define who I am. and like dealing with imposter syndrome that I'm sure a lot of photographers deal with. Like, I'm really not that good. I shouldn't be here to begin with. And just kind of getting out of your own head is hard. But thankfully, that's why it's important to have good relationships on tour and to have good relationships and a support system at home. So like when you're in those spots, you don't just like, you don't just go in a downward spiral and become, even, more upset. And that's hard because then you run the risk of, being a downer on the tour. And then, you have other people who are also going through hard things who are, not talking about it or doing a better job at keeping the composure. And you're just being, like this dark energy around them and making their life harder. So it's important to try to keep yourself in a good headspace as much as you can. But like the unfortunate realities is you are going to have hard days and you're going to have some bad situations that you have to deal with. And it's just all about how you kind of handle those and interact with the people, in your bus or in your van or on the tour package.
Definitely. So what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
Contracts. That, and just like I think the importance of being a good hang on tour. Like I didn't really realize it at first, just how important it was to just get along with everyone and to like introduce yourself and like just be friendly with everyone. That it can, someone can be having a bad day and you just being like a nice person in the morning when you're getting coffee at load in just can, make their day. And they could be having a bad situation and, just being nice to them or kind of just hanging out with them can make their day go a lot better. And I think just, being purposeful with the work you do and being purposeful with the content you shoot, not just kind of having a plan before you go into it, not just shooting and then making a video, but saying, I want to make maybe this type of video and then shooting kind of based off that with that in mind just has always helped me out a lot.
Cool. And if anybody wants to find you online or if they want to potentially hire you to do some photos or go on tour or do a music video, where can they find you and where can they get in touch with you?
I'm on the Instagram. My Instagram is TheBenderMatt. And then my website is Matt Bender Photo. I don't really use Twitter, but it's my same Instagram name. And yeah, and that's me. Shoot me a follow and I will say hi to you.
Awesome, man. Thank you for coming on Project Freelance.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Project Freelance with Matt Bender, aka The Bender Matt. If you guys don't follow him on social media, you absolutely, positively should do that. And if you enjoyed this episode, please do me a huge favor and leave a rating and some feedback on whatever streaming app you are listening to my voice on. Thank you for listening. Again, I do appreciate it more than you know. This podcast has been my creative outlet to, get in touch with friends, ask how they're doing, ask what they're doing, and get some quality information, not only for you guys, but also for myself. I learn every single time I do one of these podcasts, I learn something new. So it's a huge part of my life, and I love doing these every single Monday. So if you guys want to, keep in touch with Project Freelance and everything that's going on, who's going to be the next guest, and if you like to see little snippets throughout the week of things from the podcast, head over to Instagram at Project Freelance or Twitter at Project Freelance. Freelance. Yeah, I know. I couldn't get Project Freelance because of character count, so it's Project Freelance. But all the links will be down in the description. And if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/justtheletterK, there's a lot of photo and video content up on that channel. I would love to have you come over to that channel and check out some of my stuff. All right, guys, I will talk to you next week on Project Freelance. My name is Canon. Stay strong, keep enduring, go out and go create something.